Good to hear. How's everyone doing today? I see a lot of empty seats in the auditorium today. I'm going to attribute that, at least in part, till a late night last night. It's not the outcome all of us were expecting. Didn't get a great deal of sleep myself. I can't blame it entirely on my one-year-old daughter, but the sun still came up this morning. I think we're going to get through this, and as someone who works in a startup in the energy business, no less, I think we've really learned a thing or two about resiliency when things don't go your way or the way you're expecting them to. Anyways, I'm very pleased to be here today. I appreciate you hosting me. I'm really excited to talk a little bit about our experience as a company in California. Before we get going, let me ask the group in the room, are folks here at all familiar with OhmConnect? Have you heard of OhmConnect before? See some nods either way. Are people familiar with demand response? And has anyone participated in demand response with OhmConnect or otherwise? Okay, super. And who do we have represented? I gather we've got students, we've got faculty members. Which departments are people representing here today? Just start shouting some out. Civil engineering? Energy and resources? Anyone from economics, computer science? And anyone who's not faculty or students? Have we got any policymakers, any industry folks? Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. Super. So there's the answers to my questions. What I want to do is talk a little bit today about our journey in California, how we, OhmConnect, a third-party demand response provider, have gone about building a user base of tens of thousands of users that are reducing energy reliably and consistently and helping California meet its very ambitious energy and environmental goals. Now, what do I mean by a third-party demand response provider? In this case, third-party is really synonymous with non-utility. We have a very limited relationship as a company with the three major industrial utilities in California. Effectively, it's as simple as we provide them with customer authorizations from customers who say, I want you to give OhmConnect my smart meter data, and we receive that data in turn from the utility so that we can go about doing our business. And in this manner, my function as Director of Energy Markets, as Carl indicated, is focusing on helping to shape market rules that will facilitate this type of participation, allow us to generate value on behalf of customers, but also managing this giant machine that is aggregations of thousands of users, many of whom don't have much familiarity with energy or how the energy markets work. And I'll talk about that a little bit today, but really what I want to focus on are some of the lessons we've learned as a company in the past 3 years that we've been doing our business in California. What have we learned that has helped us to take these people that don't know much about energy and turn them really into a force that can be effective in the market and can help to realize these ambitious policy goals? And I think it really boils down to the three big themes that I want to talk about today. The first is alignment between households' willingness or ability to reduce energy and the needs of the modern California grid. We are really moving away from a paradigm where the concern is a hot summer afternoon where the grid's going to be strained and having too much load on the system. We're moving towards a paradigm where we have more and more intermittent renewables. We have more and more distributed energy resources like storage, like electric vehicles, that are causing imbalance on the grid at any time of day, any time of year, any day of the week. So if anyone in this room has signed up for OhmConnect, you'll notice that you're not just getting our events, our Ohm hours, on a hot summer afternoon. You're getting them on weekends. You're getting them in the morning. You're getting them in the evening. You're getting them in the springtime and the wintertime. This is the new reality for places like California that are trying to integrate large numbers of renewables. The second big theme has to do with how to relate energy use to the other things that the household cares about. For most households in California and elsewhere, energy use is pretty low on your overall list of concerns and considerations. You've got a family to manage, a household to manage, kids that go to school, a neighborhood you care about, a community you care about, causes you care about, things you want to buy. Energy is only one of those things. How do we make them overlap more than they otherwise would to get people to care more about their energy usage? And then the third theme has to do with automation, and in particular the interplay between automation and behavioral demand response or behavioral change. Automation through smart devices we're seeing like thermostats, EV chargers, smart plugs is a very powerful tool. But is it really enough all by itself, or is it rather something that is complemented or enhanced by education and behavioral change? So I want to walk you through our experience on these three themes and how it has enabled us to engage with households in a way that hasn't previously been possible, and again, is helping California to meet these very ambitious goals with respect to energy and the environment. Am I too far away? There we go. So we're going to start this journey at the kitchen table of the typical California household, which looks exactly like this, right? We've got a guy sitting down. He's obviously studying all of his smart meter data on various devices. He's sitting there with a bunch of demand response contracts in hand saying, hey, should I sign up with OhmConnect? Should I sign up for PG&E's program? What does my meter data look like from yesterday, from this morning, from a year ago? No, right? This is not happening. You're kidding yourself if this is happening. There are very few people who look like this, and they were the first OhmConnect customers. We were lucky to get these people in the door and have them on our program and help us figure out how we can make this an effective service, but this is far from the norm. People don't have time for this. People don't understand how all this works. And again, it's very low on their list of concerns. And moreover, you can't just throw money at this problem and think you're going to change things. And I'm going to give you a few examples from some utility programs that have tried to do exactly that approach. I'm going to pick for a little bit on Southern California Edison, our dear friends at SCE in Southern California. They have a couple of programs. One's the Peak Time Rebate Program, also known as the Safe Power Days Program. And if you sign up for this program, you get a text message or you get an email saying, hey, we're going to have an event tomorrow. Reduce your use. Not binding. Just if you can do it, and you get a few cents on your bill at the end of the month. The CPUC recently issued a decision effectively saying, hey, SCE, people are signing up, but you're spending more money on this program than it's worth to the grid. Canceling this program. I'm going to pick on SCE again. Another program you may have heard of is the Rush Hour Rewards Program with Nest. If you have a Nest thermostat, you can enroll in this SCE program. They'll turn off your thermostat on a hot summer afternoon. You get a little bit of money for participating in that. How many households do you think are signed up in that program in California? Last I heard, it's just a few thousand. Out of millions of people in the LA basin, just a few thousand on this program. One more example. Con Edison, the big utility in New York City. They have a program targeting window air conditioning units. Anyone who's been to New York knows there's not a ton of houses with big central AC systems being controlled by a central thermostat. Most people live in apartments. They've got one or more window AC units in their apartments. 7 million window AC units in New York City, I've been told. How many people signed up for this program? 1,500. 1,500 out of 7 million window AC units signed up for a program that says, hey, we'll throw money at you if you participate. It's not working. The money alone isn't working. And again, it's because people have other things they care about more than their energy usage. Here's our typical family, the Smith family. They've got kids, they've got a house, they've got family, they've got a community. All these things matter to them, in many cases, more than their energy usage. So how do we find a way to relate their energy usage to these other things that they care about? So that when they think about schools, when they think about their kids, when they think about the environment, when they think about the gadgets they'd like to have in their home, they're thinking about energy usage. And on top of that, the problems that the grid faces, integrating renewables, integrating distributed energy resources, balancing supply and demand, managing imports from outside of the state, these aren't households' problems. These are the problems of grid operators, of power producers, of energy marketers, of a whole host of other actors. The people that have my type of background from working at PG&E, they're not the average consumer's problems. Consumers expect, very simple things. I worked at PG&E, and we always talked about safe, reliable, affordable energy. People want safe, reliable, and affordable energy. It's pretty difficult to argue with that. They expect to be able to hit a switch and have the power come on. They expect maybe to get a bill once a month telling them how much they used, how much they owe for that service. But they're not concerned about the physics of electricity transmission, whether or not supply and demand are balanced on the system, whether we can accommodate all the wind energy that's being produced on a given day, whether there's a transmission outage that's restricting transfer capability between Southern and Northern California. These aren't their problems. These are the problems of the grid. And on top of that, people grew up, in many cases, with a very simplistic notion of what it means to save energy. Shut the door. Turn the lights off. Were you born in a barn, right? I mean, here's my story. When I was a little kid, I had a babysitter, and I tried to go to bed, leave the lights on in my room, leave the lights on in the hallway. And the way she got that message across to me was she said, John, there's a mean old man at the power company downtown. And this is British Columbia, Canada. This is BC Hydro. They're pretty nice people, all things considered. The mean old man at the power company downtown. And when you leave those lights on in the hallway, your mom and your dad have to give him money. To give him money for those lights. And that resonated with me. But that was about the best we could do at that time when we didn't have better information about our energy usage and its impact on the system. That's changing. We have this meter data. We have the ability to tell people more about their usage and what they can do to impact the system. And we're trying to find a way to convey that message in a very simple fashion that touches on these themes. How do you align the grid's needs with consumer capabilities and consumer willingness to reduce energy? And how do you make it resonate with the things they care about? So with that in mind, I want to show a quick video that hopefully gets this simple message across.
Meet Adam. He's an environmentally conscious person who'd like to reduce his footprint. What if he could help out the environment while making money at the same time? Introducing OhmConnect, your home's energy management tool. OhmConnect is software that turns your home into a virtual power plant. You can actually sell your electricity consumption back to the grid. It doesn't require any hardware and is completely free to use. Here's how it works. First, OhmConnect notifies you when energy prices are spiking and dirty power plants are turning on. Second, you turn off a light or two. Third, you get paid for your reduction. OhmConnect also analyzes your home's energy consumption, shows you where your energy comes from, and if you happen to have smart devices in your home, OhmConnect automates them. That's right. Connect a Wi-Fi thermostat, smart appliances, or even an electric car. OhmConnect takes care of the rest. Just cash out via PayPal when you have a minute to spare. Feeling generous? OhmConnect will even donate your earnings to your favorite charity. Winner of the Department of Energy's American Energy Data Challenge. Join OhmConnect today at www.ohmconnect.com.
So a pretty simple message I like to think between cause and effect. Save energy, get paid. Save energy, get paid. And to the folks in the room who shook your heads no when I asked, have you heard of OhmConnect? Are you familiar with demand response? Does this make sense to you? Do you think you could explain OhmConnect to your friends, to your families, to your parents, your grandparents, your kids? Is it a simple enough message? So we think so. We like to think so. And on top of that, you saw that there was more than just a simple message about save energy, get paid. There's a very straightforward appeal to the folks that want to do this for the money. But as I said at the outset, when we talked about SCE, when we talked about Con Ed, there has to be more than just that. So even in that short video, there was a number of other elements trying to appeal to the different types of customers that we're targeting. We're trying to segment users, figure out what really resonates with them, what really matters to them. So you saw not only the money in that video, you saw this notion of the virtual power plant, putting energy back on the grid, something that appeals to the folks that really do understand how energy works, who really do care about the nuts and bolts of the electric system. And many of those folks were our very first adopters, understandably, the people that had solar panels on their roofs, the people that bought the early electric vehicles that got, what, a good 20, 25 miles per charge. You saw on top of that the folks that care about their community, that care about charities, that want to donate their money to causes, maybe earning a little bit of money from OhmConnect. Doesn't matter much to them, but they know it can make a difference to a school or someone in their community who really needs that. And you saw this, this appeal to automation towards the end. We can connect smart thermostats. We can connect smart plugs, EV chargers. We can put this whole thing on autopilot for you. And I want to spend a little bit more time talking about exactly this notion. I think there's a perception that automation is our savior. It's what's going to carry the day when it comes to demand response. People are lazy, people can't be trusted, but hey, you can put technology in the home and make it all work for itself. And we think technology is fantastic. We think automation is fantastic. But I'm hesitant to say that it's the savior all by itself. And what worries me is people install technology and they think that's the end of the story. Their thermostat turns off during a demand response event, and what do? Hey, let's throw a load of laundry on, let's put a roast in the oven, let's fire up the hot tub for later, let's blast the tunes, and before you know it, you've just completely undone whatever saving would have been achieved by your thermostat alone. This is why we think it's so important to complement that automation with behavioral change, with education, so that you understand automation is a very powerful tool that can help you take your reductions to the next level, but you need to understand why you're doing that, the effect you're having, and the impact you're having through automation and behavioral change together. So what's been the big knock on demand response programs, in particular behavioral demand response? Traditionally, have grid operators liked demand response? Is it as reliable as a power plant? If you have in one hand, hey, I'm going to send a bunch of notifications to people and hope they're going to turn off, or I'm going to pull the lever and I'm going to dial up a hydro unit or a gas unit. Which one has been the best option traditionally? Folks, you guys are taking this election awful hard, huh? What would you do if you're the engineer sitting in the California ISO's control room? Traditionally, what was the best option? You're going with what you know works. You've been in this business 30 years. You've been doing power plants, transmission. Hey, I can trust the power plant. I can't trust that behavioral demand response. This is what we need to change, and this is what we're working to change. We get reliability through greater participation. And what do I mean by that? It means more people participating, tens of thousands of users instead of just hundreds or thousands, hundreds or thousands. And more frequent participation from each of those users that's using our platform. And how do we do this? Well, dare I say, we make demand response fun. Is PG&E's Smart Rate program fun? Is San Diego's Reduce Your Use program fun? Is it fun to open up your bill and see a little tiny one-line statement saying, hey, you got 4 cents over the course of the month? No, right? So we're doing something very different. Our team has a few people like myself that have energy backgrounds, worked in the utilities, worked for power marketers. But we have more people who have nothing to do with energy. Our CTO came from Zynga. His background's in gaming. We have folks from medical devices, from marketing, people that are very familiar with consumer touch points and what resonates with people, what gets them engaged, and what keeps them engaged. And for those of you who are signed up for OhmConnect, you know that a big part of our platform is about gaming. It's about play. It's about making this fun, something competitive, where you're competing against yourself, you're competing against your community, your friends, your family members, and keeping each other engaged. And one of the key ways that we're able to maintain this level of engagement is through the data we have from the utility, from the smart meter data. Have you heard the phrase, what gets measured gets done? Yeah, we're big believers in that philosophy, in that principle. So we provide feedback as quickly as we can after we have a demand response event. How did you do? How did your team do? How did your friends do, your community? And if you think about this in the grand scheme of things, suppose we have 10,000 users, and each user reduces a kilowatt during an event. That's 10 megawatts. That's a small power plant. It's a small power plant that didn't need to turn on, probably an expensive and a dirty power plant. That's clean energy, that's money right back into families' pockets. This is a good outcome for households. This is a good outcome for California. I jumped a little too quick. I want to tell you some of the ways that our customers are going about doing this. They're pretty darn creative, and they surprise us every time we have one of these events. We have people tell us, hey, I get a notification, my stuff turns off, take the dog out for a walk. I get a notification, I send my kids around the house to turn everything off. Kids are running around the house, unplugging laptops, unplugging cell phones, turning off lights, doing everything but cutting the wire from the pole. And they get to pocket the money after the event. Any money that's earned, that's allowance in their pockets. We have other people who say, you know what, lights out, let's light the candles, let's have a nice dinner. There, I said it, OhmConnect is bringing romance back throughout California. But these are true stories. People are really doing this, and they're sharing it with their community. They're sharing it with other users. They're providing inspiration and ideas to other people. Now, of course, not all good things can last. You've probably heard 90 days go by, your interest in a particular behavior starts to waver a little bit. Many of you have maybe played around in your homes with devices like the kilowatt. People know that thing. Plug into it, stick it in the wall, see how much energy you're drawing. Or some of the rainforest automation devices, same thing, a little smarter though. Pull out your smartphone, take a look at what your refrigerator's using. I shouldn't say your refrigerator, but what your house is using. These things are cool, but the effect seems to die off pretty quick. So we need to be very mindful as a company, how do we keep our users engaged? 90 days go by, things aren't changing. How do you keep the experience fresh? How do you keep it fun? This is where we start to introduce some of the features I've alluded to, like teams. I have a team personally called the Cowpox Connectors, and if you want to join after, come and talk to me. we'll get you on the roster. We raise money for the California State Parks Foundation. We've raised several $100s already for the State Parks Foundation. I encourage all of you, especially a little gloomy this morning, get out there, visit your state parks. Community, our forums, and weekly touch points. We have notifications that go out on a weekly basis providing you a summary of your usage, showing you how you did relative to your peers, relative to other people in your community, providing tips both from us and from our users as to how you can improve your performance based on the data we have on your device holdings, your smart meter, and so forth. Case studies and new gadgets that we're introducing all the time. People trust us and look to us for, what can I hook up to OhmConnect to help automate and enhance my savings? There's so many devices out there. You can go on Amazon, you can go on whatever site. Where do you even start? Some of them are terrible, some of them are great. We tested a whole bunch of these, we hooked them up, we stress tested them. You know, what does it take to make the thing lose Wi-Fi connectivity? One of the worst things that can happen to our users is we turn off your devices and they don't go back on at the end of the event. Your air conditioning goes out, doesn't go back on. That's not a good outcome. Even worse, turn off your electric vehicle charger, you wake up in the morning to go to work, not going very far. That's a bad outcome. We need to prevent those outcomes, so we do a lot of work to test and curate the devices that we recommend to our users. And one of the most interesting things is we're looking at new products in the market that we can supply with our users' capabilities to generate more value for the users. We'll touch on that in just a little bit more detail in a moment. So what is it all worth? What is it worth? You sign up for OhmConnect, what can you expect to earn for yourself, for your team, for whoever? And we figure at the low end, users are earning on average about $100 a year. And this can vary considerably depending on where you live in the state, how big your home is, what types of loads you have. If you're someone who's got 2 swimming pools and 4 Teslas in your driveway, hey, you're sitting pretty. You're going to be doing real well. If you're someone living in a San Francisco apartment, it's going to be a little trickier, but we can still put you to good work. But 100 people on a team earning $100 each a year, it's $10,000. $10,000 for the State Parks Foundation, for a school, for another charity you care about. That can make a real difference in people's lives. We try to have about an event a week, maybe more than that, but even at 50 of our Ohm hours a week, if people spend 5 minutes, just 5 minutes turning off lights, unplugging devices, and then checking their performance on the app after each event, now that translates into about 4 hours a year, $25 an hour. Not a bad payday for something that people actually generally tend to find fun, not burdensome like some of the traditional programs. And again, the points you earn, you don't have to cash them out. You can invest them right back into this program and use them to buy smart thermostats, buy EV chargers, buy devices that are going to help you perform even better, but also provide, you know, a bunch of utility just to you and your home. Where do we go next? I talked about California. Carl mentioned the wholesale markets where we're doing most of our performance to date. But again, we're trying to broaden the set of opportunities for our users, the venues in which we can earn value on behalf of our users. So we're looking to other parts of the country that have some of the same pieces in place that has allowed us to be successful in California. What do we have in California? The smart meters are key. Those aren't everywhere, but we're seeing them in more and more places. Texas, New York, Illinois, Ontario, Canada. We have rules, CPUC rules in California for data sharing. You as a customer, a PG&E customer, have the right to authorize a third-party service provider access to your meter data so that they can provide you energy services and pay you money. In other states, this isn't yet the case, or it's a very, very difficult process. And I'll tell you a little bit of how this started. When this process started in California, if Carl wanted to sign up for our service, he had, are you a PG&E customer, I'm guessing? You're a PG&E customer, Carl?
Okay.
You are a PG&E customer.
I am a PG&E customer.
And don't laugh, because you'd be surprised how many people don't even know who their utility provider is. This is what we're dealing with when we're talking about mass market adoption and implementation, moving far beyond the people that know the energy business inside and out, all the way down to people that want to make a difference, but may not even know the simplest questions such as who their provider is. This is what we're dealing with and some of the burdens we have to overcome. But back in the day, Carl, if you wanted to sign up, you had to print off a 5 or 6 page form, paper form, that even an energy attorney would struggle to understand, fill out 10 or 12 fields, sign your name with a pen, scan the form, email it back to PG&E, and hope that they wouldn't reject the damn thing because, oh, the file's too big. Or, oh, you put your name as Will or Bill instead of William. These things happened. These things turn off customers. it's death by 1,000 cuts. And we had to fight tooth and nail to get something that's an electronic process, that streamlines the process for customers, that makes this a pleasant experience, and makes this an experience more like what you're accustomed to seeing in just about every venue of life, apart from the energy business. We've made a lot of progress in California. We're trying to do the same in other parts of the country so that we can get more people on board these programs. The other big change we're seeing in places like California is not just participation by distributed energy resources in the wholesale market, where we can provide energy and some reliability products, but now opportunities much farther downstream in the utility distribution system. Opportunities where a company like OhmConnect and maybe the hundreds of thousands of users we have in a community like Berkeley can actually provide reliability services to PG&E. We can call upon our users to reliably and frequently reduce at different times in a manner that can prevent PG&E from having to spend the money, spend ratepayer money on new infrastructure, new wires, new transformers. We can provide a lower cost solution that's good for ratepayers and good for our customers. These are the types of opportunities we're looking for in California and elsewhere to generate as much value and as much opportunity on behalf of customers, on behalf of ratepayers. So that's a whirlwind journey that we've been on over the past 3 years as a company. I'm happy to take questions you may have, but again, I want you to walk out of here thinking about these three things. When it comes to energy usage, when it comes to reductions, how do you align the customer's willingness and the customer's ability to reduce energy with the needs of the California grid? With a system that needs flexibility, that needs localized responses, that needs quick responses, people are eager to do so. How do you incentivize them, and how do you provide them with a pleasant and a fulfilling experience? If you give them good information and you give them a good experience, our experience has shown that they can provide reliable and timely responses that can facilitate our state's policy goals. How do you align their thinking about energy with the things that matter most in their lives? And how do you use behavioral change in education to complement the power of automation, to really help automation realize its full potential so that we can get more people involved, more predictable responses, and help tap into these new opportunities on behalf of customers? Thanks for your attention. Appreciate your time, and again, happy to take your questions.
John, let me take a first question then. So, if I wanted to sign up for OhmConnect, what do I do?
It's as simple as going to our website and following an electronic process that would authorize OhmConnect to be your demand response provider. So I'm going to get into a little bit of technical detail. A few years ago, the CPUC in California, the Public Utilities Commission, passed a rule called Rule 24, Rule 32, technically in the case of San Diego. This, again, gives consumers the right to make their meter data available to a third-party demand response provider who will then offer them demand response services. And the reason this was done is, again, what was the impediment, or what were the impediments to companies like OhmConnect serving residential customers, as opposed to the big guys, your Enernox, your Johnson Controls, your C-Powers, that serve big industrial and commercial customers. The biggest thing was any one household provides relatively modest reductions, but when you aggregate up hundreds of thousands of households, you can get a very significant response. But it was prohibitively expensive for a company like OhmConnect to go around to each and every one of your homes and install our own revenue-grade metering equipment on your home. It would put us in the poorhouse pretty quick. And it's brutally wasteful. We already have a perfectly good revenue-grade interval meter that's passing data wirelessly back to the utility that was paid for with ratepayer funds. The thinking was, let's unlock that potential, that data, with the customer's consent to allow companies like OhmConnect to provide services at lower cost than the traditional utility programs. So we are moving towards a paradigm where it will be a very, very streamlined authorization process, much like what you're accustomed to with services like Facebook, integrating with other platforms like the New York Times. I have a New York Times account. I have a Facebook account. I want to give the New York Times website access to my Facebook data. This is done basically in 2 steps, and I'm sure all of you have done this in some way, shape, or form. You put in your Facebook username and password, you authenticate yourself, and then you tell Facebook which particular pieces of data you want to provide access to. It's exactly the same thing for us. The analogy for us is OhmConnect is the New York Times, PG&E is Facebook. PG&E is hosting the data. Once you as a customer have authenticated yourself and authorized access to your data, we're all set to go. So we're moving towards something that is that simple that you could take out your mobile phone and you can sign up in a matter of seconds.
And then what happens?
Then you're on board. You start receiving notifications from OhmConnect when it's time to save energy and get paid. And what's going on under the hood is largely invisible to the user because it makes for a more pleasant user experience. But what we are doing with our customers is aggregating them up into a market resource that is actually participating in the California ISO's energy market as though it were a physical power plant. An aggregation of hundreds or thousands of customers is bidding into the market. When it's dispatched by the market because it is the low-cost option relative to a conventional power plant, we get an instruction from the ISO and we communicate that to our users in the form of SMS, email notifications, and push notifications through our app. And if you have devices in your home, as you saw in the video, your thermostat, your EV charger, those are going to turn off automatically. So it's a very simple, very streamlined process.
Let me see.
Would you like
some other questions here? Go ahead.
Hey, thank you so much for the talk. I think this is a great app, and I'm pretty sure that you wanted to introduce it to a lot of people. So my question is, what are your marketing strategies?
Sure.
And how do you make money out of this app?
Sure. So let me answer the second question first. We are paying people for their energy reductions. Obviously, we need to get money from someplace to pay for those payments. And as I said to Carl, what we are presently doing is we are selling these reductions into the California ISO's wholesale market. We combine all of our users in a particular part of the grid into what looks to the market like a power plant. And the market optimization is saying, I need the balanced supply and demand. What is the least cost way of doing that? Should I turn on this power plant, or should I turn off all of these users that are controlled by OhmConnect? And if our bid to turn off is cheaper than the power plant's bid to turn on, we're the ones that are going to get called by the market and paid by the market for providing that energy reduction. And the way that energy reduction is verified by the market is through all the smart meter data that we gather from our users. We get that data, we add it up, we present it to the market, and we say, look, we reduced what we said we would. We get paid the market price for that reduction. So that's the second part of your question. The first part is, how do we get people on board? It was pretty easy at first. It was friends and family, and it was, again, the gearheads that had solar panels on their roofs, that had the storage systems. They were engineering themselves by hauling batteries out of their early generation EVs and those kinds of guys that would do anything and everything to do with energy. But we've moved far beyond that now to these people that don't even know who their utility provider is. The vast majority of our user growth is coming through referrals. We pay incentives right now to people. If you sign up a friend, you sign up a family member, you get a bonus, and your friend gets a bonus as well. So the vast majority of our growth has been through these word-of-mouth referrals, which is very good for us because we're only paying out for the people that actually convert and sign up to our program. We've tried various marketing approaches, and again, if you think of the video and the different segments of users, we've tried with different degrees of success to market to these different types, the environmental types, the eco-conscious types, the folks that care about their communities and their schools. We've gone to PTA conferences and talked to various PTAs in the state of California. We've worked with organizations like the Sierra Club, and we've also had a great deal of success working with organizations that really target the coupon cutter crowd, the folks that really do want to save $5, $10 a month, that's a real decent chunk of change. It's beer money, go straight in the peanut butter jar. Why not? It's easy, it's fun, and I'm making some money doing that. So thinking about that segmentation and really leveraging referrals have been the most powerful tools to date.
So if my house is not already wired up with a lot of smart devices that can be remotely turned on and off, then I understand you send me messages, or how do you tell me when I should save some energy and in what form?
Sure. So how we verify your energy reduction, whether that's done on a behavioral basis or an automated basis, is all based on the smart meter data. What we care about is, what does your whole home do? So to participate, you need to have a smart meter, and most homes in California now do. But you don't need to have any smart devices in your home. Let me be clear about that. And that we see is one of our advantages. There's a very low barrier to get involved with OhmConnect. Sign up, and right away you start getting notifications. These notifications...
How do I get the notifications?
Sure. Email, text message, or push notification in the mobile app.
And what does a typical notification say to me?
Notification will say, there's an Ohm hour tomorrow from 1 to 2 p.m. Reduce energy. Here's some ideas for reducing energy. And we can send you another message closer to the event.
I see.
you'll
So
get
it's like a whole day ahead of time. So lots of planning. It's not like right now you should turn off your devices. Or
so we can do both, and it depends on which market run the award came from in the California ISO. We participate in the day-ahead market as well as the real-time market. If we're in the day-ahead market, we're going to get a notification the day before the actual event, and we can share that with our users if they prefer. We let people customize the types of notifications that they get. Do you want to get notifications day of, or do you want a notification at the moment of? Some people, believe it or not, if I tell you there's an event tomorrow from 2 to 3, you'll say, okay, great, and then you forget about it. But if I tell you 5 minutes before, and you're in a position to reduce, then people will actually act upon that much better.
Okay.
Other people don't want notifications on the weekend. They don't want them before 7 a.m. or after 8 p.m. We let people customize those things so that we're not inconveniencing them, and so that we have a better sense of what response we're actually going to get when we call upon people.
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
2 questions. One is about automation standards like OpenADR. I don't think you guys are using anything like that, but I'm curious if you have certain thermostats that you support or certain plug strip devices. So if you could talk a little about the technology platform.
Sure.
Then my second question is, how long are the events and how often are they called, and how many megawatts are you actually providing now? Just curious about how many customers you have and what you've achieved.
Let me try to get to all those, and if I miss any of them, ask me again. So I'll try to go backwards, I think. We have tens of thousands of users in California, most of which are participating in the ISO's markets, but some of which are also under contract to utilities for various utility programs. We're reducing dozens of megawatts on any given event throughout California. The numbers are getting quite significant. We are literally displacing small power plants. With respect to devices, well, let me start first with the question about OpenADR. We're working predominantly with residential customers for the time being. Again, we have a very consumer-centric model, very good consumer touch points, and we saw this as a segment that was really underserved. And the reason, again, it was underserved is until very recently, there wasn't an easy pathway to get meter data. There wasn't an easy pathway to participate in the wholesale market. It wasn't easy to get people on board your program. As I mentioned, this 5-page paper form and scanning and sending in is a real barrier that I don't think many policymakers appreciated until we started putting people through the paces. Now, we do have some commercial small business customers, and they have come about mostly because people sign up for OhmConnect in their homes and they say, you know what, this would work in my shop, this would work in my restaurant, this would work in my store, and they start signing up their businesses. Now, their businesses may have different load profiles, different needs, and we're starting to give some more thought to how we could tailor our services for business customers and perhaps tap into some of these OpenADR systems. Right now, we'd be dealing with businesses that have a consumer thermostat, for instance, in their home rather than a very sophisticated building energy management system. But that is something we'll start to explore. Now, the specific devices, I mentioned that there are many, many devices out there. We can work with a large number of devices, but we've focused on a handful that we think work especially well, provide an especially good customer experience. That when you take the thing out of the box, it's easy to set up, it's easy to connect to OhmConnect, and it's going to provide you with a reliable experience. So in terms of thermostats, we work with Schneider Electric's Wiser Air thermostat. We work with the Honeywell Lyric. We work with Ecobee's Ecobee 3 thermostat. We do work with Nest. They're not actually a device that we sell in our store, on our website. Their model and their willingness to engage with other third-party partners has been a little different than some of the other companies. In terms of smart plugs, we really went nuts testing these things, and we settled on one made by a company called TP-Link that you can find on Amazon or find in our store for a fairly cheap price. We put these things to the paces. We said, let's hook it up. Let's see how reliable the Wi-Fi is. Let's see if we can turn it off, turn it on. And some of them were a disaster. They were just awful. They'd lose connectivity. They'd turn off. They wouldn't turn back on. They'd just do random stuff. They weren't providing a good user experience. The TP-Link one we settled on, we found, hey, the Wi-Fi is reliable. It has some default settings. You can program the thing to turn back on after a certain amount of time. So if I turned off your refrigerator, which incidentally the FDA says you can in fact do for up to about 6 or so hours. So people ask us, hey, can I hook up my fridge? Is that going to ruin my food? No, in general it should not. But what happens if your Wi-Fi plug loses Wi-Fi connectivity? OhmConnect turns you off, and then the thing goes, bleh, it loses your Wi-Fi network. Well, this one's smart enough to know, I lost Wi-Fi. It's been 2 hours. I better turn back on. That provides for a good user experience. Did I touch on all your questions, or did I miss anything?
And I guess my other question was about, you said 1 hour.
Oh, right.
Do you have events that are longer than that?
Typically, to date, our events have been in hourly blocks, and we have had some events that would have more than one consecutive hour. So it gives us a good opportunity to understand our users' capabilities. We have some folks that just say, gimme, 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 gimme. I'll take Ohm hours, as fast as you can throw them at me, and I'll give you everything I've got. The folks that are dining by candlelight and sending the kids around the house. Other people who say, one's good, leave me alone for a couple of days, but then I'm happy to do it again. So that gives us good information about how we should present these users to the market in order to best take advantage of their capabilities and their willingness to provide reductions.
Thank you, John. This was great. I think it's a little bit unfair to compare OhmConnect to, say, a CNE or a San Diego. I'd rather that you compare it to, say, maybe an O-Power. It's acquired by Oracle. And they would say that the single most effective way of reducing energy use among consumers would be to tell them what their neighbors are doing and how they're performing relative to their neighbors, without the need for any of the bells and whistles and smart devices. And so how does OhmConnect compare to, say, an O-Power?
Sure. I think it boils down perhaps again to the comparison I made to the kilowatt or the rainforest devices, where you get a new set of information, a new piece of technology, and it provides some insights and maybe changes your behavior for some stretch of time. But that effect tends to wear off over time. We're trying to stop that decline in the change of behavior by keeping people engaged and competitive, providing new pieces of technology, dare I say the bells and whistles, but keeping this experience novel and changing and evolving, and keeping you on your toes, quite frankly, as well. The big thing that's different about what we're doing is you're getting these events at very unpredictable points in time. If it was predictable when an Ohm hour is going to happen, then there are energy traders that would swoop in and arbitrage those opportunities away. Our grid is changing in such a way that we don't know when the demand response resources are necessarily going to be needed. So people are kept kind of on their toes as to, hey, there's an Ohm hour in the morning, there's an Ohm hour in the night, Ohm hour on the weekend, in the winter, in the summer. And that provides for a very interesting, I think, more engaging experience than something that's much more predictable. Does that speak to your question?
O-Power does something very similar in terms of consumer engagement, but relying on just that one key piece, comparing, gamifying the neighbors. And
right.
So I don't see the distinction.
Well, I think they're looking for a different type of behavioral change than we are. They're looking to shift the way you use energy on a regular basis. We're looking for something simpler, arguably, in that we're telling you precisely when is a good time to save energy, that's good for the environment, good for the grid, helpful to the grid, and a good opportunity for you to make money for yourself or for the things you care about. It's not to say they're both important, and I certainly want to make clear that the traditional paradigm of shutting doors and windows and turning off lights is by no means a bad thing. We don't want people using energy wastefully. But for most people, there is an opportunity cost to foregoing energy consumption. Unless you are just miserably inefficient, people aren't going to sit around in their homes with the air conditioning off all day on a hot summer day. You're going to have to incentivize them with something very strong and something more than just money, I believe, in order to elicit those kinds of behavioral changes. So we're trying to provide a very short, transient opportunity to make a difference without sacrificing too much comfort or too much lifestyle.
One last question.
How do you actually calculate the reduced demand? And does it vary between the day ahead and the instantaneous markets that you operate on?
That's a great question. So with demand response, most programs are going to measure your performance during the event against some baseline, some counterfactual. And of course, the hard part of this is we don't get to see the world twice. We don't get to see what you would have done, all else equal, but for the Ohm hour. There's many different ways a baseline can be constructed. We follow a methodology used by the California ISO that looks at your historical usage and tries to predict your contemporaneous usage, your counterfactual usage based on that historical usage. Sometimes that works well, and sometimes, frankly, it doesn't. Because people do things out of the ordinary that affect this baseline measure. Maybe you were on vacation last week, or maybe you had a big election party last night at your house like I did. And that's going to cause a blip in your historical consumption that will persist for some time and impact your baseline. And I mentioned some of the things that drive people nuts. One is when your devices don't turn back on. Another is when you do everything possible short of cutting the wire to your house. And then when the data comes back and you're not credited with providing a reduction. People pull out their hair and say, hey, what more could I possibly have done? And you guys aren't giving me squat. This is something that we're studying, and we're working with actually research teams both here at Berkeley as well as at Stanford to try to think of some alternative ways that we can measure people's performance and credit people for their performance that are going to minimize the adverse effects of these types of situations. It's a little bit different when you aggregate up many, many users into a resource that the market looks at, because these types of blips will tend to average each other out. And there's also some opportunity to use entirely different methodologies that don't look at historical data, but rather are more analogous to a randomized control trial. You'll have some users that are providing a response, others that aren't notified of the event, and you compare the two groups in order to calculate the performance of one group relative to the other. So this is definitely one of the big issues in demand response. That's the way it's typically done for the day-ahead market settlements. One of the things that we're really excited about and that we're working on with some partners at the California ISO and at EPRI, the Electric Power Research Institute, is trying to get even more granular and more real-time data on our users. Trying to use the devices in the home to infer your usage in real time so that we can actually have a measure of your real-time usage prior to the event and your usage during the event, and get what we think is as close to a causal estimate as possible of the response provided in real time, so that there is no ambiguity or no mismeasurement of what you did, and people are in general going to be compensated for the performance that they believe they provided.
Thanks. John, thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin.